Welcome to the uncanny valley of relatability. It's that creepy, uncomfortable space where a celebrity tries so desperately to act like a normal person. They're programmed with all the right buzzwords: authenticity, vulnerability, kindness, but the execution is just off. For years, we've watched Meghan Markle attempt to master this performance, and her Netflix lifestyle show was supposed to be her magnum opus. Instead, it became a masterclass in the exact opposite, a monument to the awkwardness that happens when a fake life is presented as a real one. The curated kitchen. Before the show even aired, the concept was clear. Meghan was coming for the lifestyle guru throne. We were promised a warm, inviting glimpse into her world of cooking, gardening, and entertaining. The goal was to position her as a California chic Martha Stewart, a tastemaker for a new generation. But from the first few moments, it was obvious that she had fundamentally misunderstood the assignment. The power of lifestyle mavens like Ina Garten or Joanna Gaines comes from a foundation of earned trust and effortless expertise. We believe Ina when she says store-bought is fine because we've seen her effortlessly whip up a 5-course meal. We trust Joanna's design tips because we've seen her turn dilapidated barns into dream homes. Their domesticity feels lived in, authentic, and occasionally a little messy. Meghan's version, by contrast, felt like a pristine, perfectly lit museum exhibit of domesticity. Her kitchen wasn't a workspace, it was a set. Not a single ingredient was out of place, not a smudge was visible on her gleaming stainless steel appliances. This sterile perfection made the infamous food moments feel even more bizarre. The now legendary scene where she repackaged Trader Joe's pretzel nuggets into a bespoke bag wasn't just a quirky misstep. It was an act that exposed the entire show's hollow core. It was the perfect metaphor for her brand, taking something common and accessible and putting it in a fancier package to create the illusion of elevated taste. Then came the chicken. The image of a raw, uncovered piece of poultry resting in her fridge sent a shockwave of hygienic horror through the internet. The clumsy, after-the-fact excuse that the chicken had been parboiled only made things weirder and did nothing to fix the core problem. It wasn't just about food safety. It was about credibility. It was a rookie mistake from someone trying to sell themselves as an expert host. It's no wonder that respected chefs reportedly wanted nothing to do with the production. Chef Jameson Stocks, who has cooked for royalty, openly admitted he'd turned down an offer to appear, suggesting Meghan was better at acting both on and off screen. It was a brutal but telling assessment. The professionals could see that this wasn't a serious cooking show, it was a branding exercise, and the recipe was a disaster. The monarchy in the mirror. For a show that was meant to be about Meghan's new, independent life in California, it was shockingly obsessed with the British royal family. The monarchy wasn't just a ghost in the machine, it was a constant, looming presence that she seemed utterly incapable of escaping. Every anecdote, every choice, every moment of vulnerability was framed in direct opposition to her past life, which, paradoxically, kept that past life front and center. She was trying to show us who she is now, but could only seem to do so by relentlessly reminding us of who she used to be. This created a series of deeply awkward moments where her supposed liberation felt more like a lingering fixation. Take the infamous moment she corrected her guest and friend, Mindy Kaling, for calling her Meghan Markle. Her interjection, "I'm Sussex now," was a masterclass in social cringe. It wasn't just the contradiction of a self-proclaimed royal escapee clinging to her title. It was the sheer awkwardness of correcting a friend on camera, a subtle assertion of status that made everyone, including the audience, feel uncomfortable. It was a power move disguised as a preference, a reminder of a hierarchy she claims to hate. But nothing captured this bizarre fixation more than the theatrical reenactment of her first curtsy to the late Queen. Her comparison of this deeply ingrained royal tradition to a medieval times dinner show was already a stunningly tone-deaf choice. But the performance itself, a deep, sweeping, almost mocking bow, was a moment of pure, unadulterated cringe. The real show, however, was Prince Harry's face. As his wife performed this pantomime of disrespect to his own grandmother, he sat frozen, his expression a mixture of horror and resignation. It was the look of a man who had left everything behind for a new life, only to watch his partner publicly ridicule the world he came from. The awkwardness wasn't just about a breach of protocol. It was about watching a fundamental cultural disconnect play out between a husband and wife on a global stage, a disconnect they themselves had chosen to broadcast. The supporting cast of cringe. A key element of any reality show is the supporting cast. The friends, the family, the experts, they are all there to create a sense of a real, lived-in world. In Meghan's show, however, the supporting cast often felt less like real people and more like carefully selected props, there to bolster the central narrative of Meghan as a beloved, inspiring, and authentic figure. The conversations with her friends, including A-listers like Serena Williams and Abigail Spencer, often felt stilted and unnatural. The dialogue was heavy on affirmations and light on genuine, spontaneous interaction. It felt less like a casual chat between old friends and more like a PR-approved testimonial session, with each friend dutifully playing their part in praising Meghan's strength, warmth, and courage. The hand-picked experts who appeared on the show also contributed to this feeling of a tightly controlled production. They existed not to challenge Meghan or to offer diverse perspectives, but to validate her own worldview. Every interaction was smooth, agreeable, and perfectly aligned with the show's overarching message. There was no friction, no debate, no moment of unpredictable human interaction. It was a world populated entirely by nodding heads and effusive compliments. Even Prince Harry, the co-star of this new life, often felt like an awkward accessory. While he was frequently present, his role seemed to be that of a silent, supportive observer. In many scenes, particularly when Meghan was discussing more controversial aspects of their past, his body language was tense and uncomfortable. He became a sort of silent barometer for the audience's own unease. His strained smiles and quiet presence in the background only served to highlight the performative nature of the scenes. Instead of creating a picture of a dynamic, equal partnership, the show often presented him as a passive member of the audience for the Meghan show, a silent witness to a performance he seemed, at times, deeply uncomfortable with. This lack of genuine, messy, unpredictable human connection with her supporting cast is what ultimately made the show's world feel so thin and artificial. The sound of silence. This pattern of creating content that was aesthetically pleasing but emotionally hollow wasn't an isolated incident. The issues that plagued the Netflix show were the exact same issues that led to the spectacular implosion of her multi-million-dollar podcast deal with Spotify. The show, Archetypes, was launched with a massive marketing push and a promise to have deep, unfiltered conversations with powerful women. The reality was a series of highly polished, heavily edited episodes that felt more like audiobooks of Meghan's personal essays than actual podcasts. Listeners and critics alike complained that the show lacked the one thing that makes the podcast medium so compelling: spontaneity. The conversations were so tightly controlled that any potential for genuine, off-the-cuff moments was completely suffocated. Meghan dominated the airtime, often using her high-profile guests as launching pads for her own long, meandering monologues. It felt, once again, like a performance of conversation rather than the real thing. The industry's verdict was swift and brutal. After just one season, Spotify pulled the plug on the $20 million deal. The failure was so profound that a top Spotify executive, Bill Simmons, publicly torched the couple, famously calling them "effing grifters." It was a shocking moment of corporate candor that confirmed what many audiences were already feeling. The issue wasn't just one failed project, it was a failed content strategy. Both the podcast and the Netflix show were built on a promise of authenticity that their overproduced, rigidly controlled nature could never deliver. They were beautiful packages with nothing inside, and the sound of that emptiness was deafening. In the end, the most awkward moment of Meghan's Netflix show wasn't a single scene. It wasn't the pretzels, the chicken, or the curtsy. It was the entire premise. The show was a multi-million-dollar solution to a public relations problem that only succeeded in making the problem exponentially worse. It was designed to make her seem relatable, but it only highlighted how out of touch she is. It was meant to showcase her authentic self, but it only exposed the machinery of her performance. It was a grand, expensive, beautifully lit exercise in self-sabotage, proving that the more you try to control the narrative of your own authenticity, the more awkward and unbelievable the story becomes.